What up, what up? It's Grant, and this video is going to be exactly why your standards in life are completely trapping you and keeping you stuck forever. So this video is going to be exactly how to find your standards, how to change your standards and actually level up in life, and how the whole mechanism works, because this is so subconscious for a lot of people. They have no idea this is even happening. So I think this is going to be super valuable to you. You guys from the TikTok are like, Grant, make a YouTube. Like every day I'm getting bullied to make a YouTube. So because I'm a man of the people, I'm gonna make the video, right? And this is gonna be super uncut. This is just gonna be off the top. So I'll probably say a lot of dumb stuff, and that's all right. Let me make sure I'm recording. I am. All right, let's jump in. So when I say standards, and your standards are keeping you trapped in life, what am I talking about? And I'm getting paranoid that I'm not in the camera. Can I sit up? Yeah, I can. Okay, I should be good. So when I say standards, here's what I mean. What you think is normal, right? Because what you think is normal is going to be the same thing as what Jeff Bezos thinks is normal, what Elon Musk thinks is normal, what your dad thinks is normal, what your friends think are normal. You're going to have your own version of normal. So here's what I mean by that, right? Let's say Jeff Bezos gets $5 million in his bank account. Well, do you know what he's going to do? He's going to freak out because he's like, oh my God, I'm going broke, right? But if you got $5 million in your bank account, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm rich. I'm going to retire. This is the greatest thing ever, right? So why the discrepancy? It's because you guys have different standards. So here's how you find your standard. He's a really good example. And this is the video I use in the TikTok, or the example I use in the TikTok, I mean. So let's say you have $500 in your bank account, right? That is your standard, as you can see on the screen here. Now, let's say this is $500 is your standard. Now, let's say you graduated high school or something and your grandma gave you another $1,500. So now you have $2,000 in your bank account. You're balling out. Well, in your mind, $500 is normal. That's your standard, right? And so now you have a peak and you have a valley around your standard. So now the $2,000 is a peak because you're like, oh my God, I have way more than I'm used to. This is awesome. So what do? You unconsciously start spending money, start becoming more lackadaisical, start becoming more laissez-faire, right? I don't know what the word would be, but you start taking your foot off the gas pedal and you start lightening up a little bit and being a little more less strict. So you're going to go to Macy's with your sister, and then you're going to be like, oh man, those sandals are awesome. Well, I do have $2,000 now. You know what? I'm going to buy them. Boom, you buy it, right? Your friends are like, hey, come get pho. And you're like, oh man, you're like, I love pho. And then you go to pho and you get the pho, you get the boba tea, you get the mango sticky rice, you get everything that you can order because you got $2,000 in your bank account. Normally you wouldn't do that, but because you have more money than you're used to, you do it, right? So you're gonna subconsciously spend yourself back down to your standard. And then when you get to your standard, you're gonna be like, oh my God, what happened? I'm back to where I was. What happened to all that money I used to have? I didn't save any of it because your standard is holding you hostage. Does that make sense? So every time you get more money in your bank account, you're going to unconsciously spend it back down to your standard, because whether you're aware of it or not, these mechanisms are working in the background. But guess what? It works the same way as well. So let's say you have your $500 in your bank account and you're with your buddies. You guys are smoking frickin' blunties in a car or something, right? And then you're on a dirt road doing donuts and then a rock smashes your windshield, right? Totally random example. Never happened to me. So your windshield smashes. And you're like, okay, this stinks. I gotta go get my window fixed. So you go get your window fixed. And the guy there says, hey bro, you got a freaking VW Jetta? Awesome car. Well, it's gonna be $400. And you're like, dang it. So you pay him $400, right? So you were used to $500 as your standard. You spent $400 of that. Now you're at $100. How are you gonna feel at $100, right? This is your valley. Your valley is 100 because it's lower than your standard. So now, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be like, oh my God, I only have $100. Oh my God, I gotta save money. I gotta go make more money, right? So you might start picking up extra hours at work. Your behavior is changing. Your friends are like, hey, come get pho. And you're like, man, I don't have any money. Like, you wanna cover me, homie? You know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, man, we got you. You're always broke. You're like, okay, cool, right? So you know what I mean? So you start becoming more restrictive. Does that make sense? So you start actually putting your foot back on the gas pedal to build upwards because you're at your valley here. So you can see that your behavior doesn't change on your standard because your standard is what your behaviors that you have now are giving you. And I want to say that again so you really understand what I just said. Your standard that you're at now, your standard is there because your current behaviors are leading you to this standard. Okay? I'm getting goosebumps just telling you that because it's so important. Literally. So the question becomes, How did you end up with a standard? Well, it really doesn't matter because it's probably you never questioned it. It's unconscious. It's usually implemented there by your parents or your family or whatever. You just see people doing something and you copy it. It doesn't really matter, right? It's you never really know why, but you have to look at this, and this is so important. When you have to look at where your behavior changes, okay? Because your current behaviors lead you to your standard. It's normally what you do. But how come, right? How come you get a certain amount of money and you spend it all back down? You become more frivolous and you've noticed it. You felt it before. How come when you get low on money in your valley, you start saving all your money and working extra hours? Why does your behavior change in the peak and the valley? That's the question that we need to answer here, okay? And the answer to that question is it's just a mechanism of being a human. It's just how we are as humans. Who knows why it's there, okay? But as long as you can recognize these peaks and valleys, your life is going to change, because when you hit your peak, lazy and destructive behaviors are going to take place. When you hit your valley, you're going to start growing and building, and you're going to actually have some little fire under your ass, right? Because we as humans, we don't do anything unless we have a little fire under our ass. Motivation doesn't, discipline and motivation kind of exists, but it only can exist if the fire is there. So, but here's the craziest part, right? That same mechanism that I just talked about with money works in every area of your life. I mean, think about your room, for example. What's your room normally look like? You probably got some socks on the floor, maybe a t-shirt on the floor, some sweatpants on the floor, whatever, okay? Now, time goes by and you throw more clothes on you throw more clothes on the floor, you throw frickin' probably dishes on the floor. Your room looks like a freaking disaster, okay? But it's gonna get to a point where you're like, okay, this is absolutely disgusting. I have to clean it. I can't freaking focus. And then you're gonna go on a cleaning spree, right? And now the room is spotless. Why did that happen? Why did you pick that point out of every point that you could have to start cleaning your room like a crazy person? Well, it's because of your valley, okay? Because your standard was here. You hit your personal valley, and then you started cleaning. Now, think about this. Everybody has different valleys. That's why some people will be like, oh my gosh, he's a pig. And then that same guy will be like, no, you're a neat freak. Does that make sense? It's because where their valleys are at different spots. So one person's valley's here, one person's valley's here. So this person's valley's like, oh my God, this is disgusting. I have to clean it. But this person's like, I don't really care. It's not that dirty, right? So then when this person starts cleaning right here, this guy's like, you're a freaking neat freak. It's not even that bad. But then when it gets here, she's like, oh my God, I can't see how this is even possible, right? So people have different peaks and valleys, and that's how they see the world differently. Does that make sense? So whether it comes to clean, and your room is the same way. So let's say you clean your room and now it's super clean, right? Your room's super clean. It looks amazing. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to walk in and be like, oh my God, my room looks great. You're going to take your shirt off and be like, frick it. I'm going to put it over here, right? You throw your shirt in the corner. Now you have one shirt on the floor. Then you come back the next day and you put your jacket on the floor. You don't hang it up in the corner, right? Or the closet or whatever. So you're consciously you're peppering in some chaos. You're peppering in some mess into your life, right? And that's just how the world works. It basically, there's order, we start peppering in chaos, and at some point we got to create order again. But you need energy to create order. So does that make sense? So here's the crazier part though. That same mechanism with the peaks and valleys and standards, it's going to be working across domains in your life. What do I mean by this? I mean, for valleys, when your room is the dirtiest, is when your bank account's the lowest, is when you have the most dishes in your sink, is when your car's the dirtiest, is when you're the most hungover and you haven't done anything in your life, right? The chaos ensues everything. And that's why I always say your mind is literally your life, because it's reflected in everything that you do. In the same way, when you're at a peak, the peak is usually going to be reflected in everything. So when your room is the cleanest, is when you're eating the healthiest, is when your bank account's the highest, is when your car's the cleanest, is when your homework's done, right? So order, they all go up together. Order goes together and chaos goes together, and it's reflected in every area of our life. So the reason that you're stuck in life is because you're not aware of what your standards are, and you're not catching yourself at a peak and a valley. So here's the solution right here. This is all you have to do. Understand that awareness alone is curative. What does this mean? This means that you just being aware of what's happening and you seeing what's going on, that alone is going to help you fix it. Because awareness alone will start to parse it out and fix it for you. So literally you're going to get some more money in your bank account, and you're going to start like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this and this and this. You're going to catch yourself and be like, I'm doing it again. I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to revert back to that old standard. I'm going to raise my standard now, right this second. And then you choose not to engage in that behavior. Okay? Does that make sense? And that's literally how you fix it. So when you hit a peak, right? I call it the don't self-destruct for 30 days framework. Because this is literally how I've done it in my own life. So Okay, cool, Grant. I'm aware of my standard, kinda, my peaks, and my valleys. I totally get what you're saying. What do I do about this? How do I fix it for myself? This is exactly what you do. So when your standard, whatever your standard is in whatever area of life that you're trying to fix, right? Whether this is relationships with people, money, how cleanly you are, how organized you are, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. When you hit a peak, what you want to do is when you're at that peak, you want to have the don't self-destruct for 30 days framework. What does this mean? Let's use the money example. If you're used to $500 and you get that $2,000 in there and it's more than you normally have, you have to say, okay, I have more than I normally have and I can feel it in my body. I'm aware of this. I am not going to go crazy with the spending like I normally would for 30 days. That's it. Okay, so every time you go out to pho with your friends and you want to get the mango rice and the double shot Coca-Cola and whatever you drink, and you want to go buy the Macy's shoes and all the outfits that you can never afford, and oh, I just want those Beats headphones and then I'll be happy. Instead of you buying all that extra stuff that you don't normally buy because you have more money in your bank account, just hold off. What does that look like in real life? That looks like you going into Macy's or whatever, you looking at those sandals and being like, oh man, those are really cool, and I do have $2,000. I'm doing it again. Okay, I'm not going to do this. And you walk away. Okay, if you do that for 30 days, your brain is going to reset. Okay, so your brain is going to say, oh, this is my new normal. So then $2,000 becomes your normal. And then if you crash your car at that point, pay $500 for the fix, and now you're at $1,500, you're going to be uncomfortable physically. You're going to be like, oh my God, I had $2,000, I'm at $15, I should probably work some extra hours, right? Congratulations. You just reset your standard. And notice what I said there. You're going to feel it in your body. It's a part of you. It is a part of your being. Your standards, you're gonna that because that's what dictates the behaviors. When you're at the peak and when you're at the valley, do you notice how your behavior changes? Why? Because it's part of your being. It's in your soul. Your standards are embedded into literally your soul, if that makes sense. So when you don't self-destruct for 30 days, you're embedding that new standard and programming your brain and your soul to act a certain way. Okay? So that's literally what I do to fix these things. So it's really that simple. When you hit that peak, just don't F it up for 30 days and let it be there and just let it happen, and don't self-sabotage yourself. Just let it sit and say, hey, I'm going to go self-sabotage the other way. I might smoke a lot, or I might go on a little orgy spree, whatever you have to do, right? But don't sabotage that one area, and then it's going to sit as your normal. You're going to cure it, and you're going to feel amazing. So I hope this video was helpful. I think a lot of you guys like the TikTok, so if you guys want to check out the TikTok, it's at MindHacks. Deuces.